As we wrap up Problem Gambling Awareness Month, we take a look at some of the solutions that are helping people get their lives back on track. And one of those innovative solutions was created right here in Las Vegas. So today on CityCast Las Vegas, we talk with longtime Nevada attorney Dayvid Figler, known to many of you as a former host of this show, and to others as one of the driving forces behind the country's first gambling diversion court. It's Wednesday, March 25th. I'm Sonja Cho Swanson, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. All right, Dayvid, welcome back to your show.
It's nice to be here. And we have a familiar voice as our producer now.
I know. Isn't it funny? We've kind of done a weird little musical chairs with
you used to
our
produce,
setup here.
I used to host, and Jacob Solis used to be a guest who we loved having on. Now, Jacob is the producer, you're the host, and I'm the guest. Hooray!
We're doing a little musical chairs here just for funsies, see what happens. But let's get started because this episode is really like right up your alley. You've been an expert in the area of problem gambling for a long time. So what happens in a gambling diversion court? What even is that? What makes it different from a regular court?
Well, diversion courts are very common throughout the country. We often see them for people with drug addictions. We also have diversion courts for veterans or people with serious mental health issues. The general concept behind a diversion court is that not everyone should be on a pathway to incarceration, that there might be extenuating circumstances that don't forgive the offense, but certainly are a better approach to not only fairness and due process and all the good stuff we like in justice, but also better chance to, allow folks to reincorporate back into polite society after they've made some bad choices that have crossed into criminality.
Can you kind of walk us through the steps of how it works, though? So say like someone is arrested for, I don't know, stealing a car because it needed the money, right? Mm-hmm. What happens? How do they get identified as a problem gambler and get into this court?
I mean, that's still, even though we've had this law on the books since 2009, it is still a little challenging to figure out who should go in and who shouldn't go in. So there are rules that have been set up before we even had what we consider to be a quote unquote brick and mortar gambling treatment diversion court. Okay. So when the law was passed back in 2009, there was an awareness by all the stakeholders, including the gambling industry, the casinos themselves, were all kind of at the table saying, look, there are a lot of people in our community, a lot of locals in our community who shouldn't be gambling at all and whose addictions have driven them to commit certain offenses. Now, the legislature was very clear to make sure that people who commit crimes against other people not be included in the calculus. So if you
violent crimes,
hurt somebody or rob somebody in pursuit of money for gambling, you're immediately ineligible. They tried to make it difficult for probably obvious reasons. So if you are a multiple offender, if you've been through a program before and, now you're back again, there are a lot of distinctions on who can and cannot come in. It's not an automatic by any means.
Okay. And then so what happens actually within the gambling diversion court? Like, is it sort of like soft cushy cushions and couches and they hand you an iced tea and they say, now tell me what's wrong, baby. I want to hear more about this.
I mean, that doesn't sound too bad if you're ultimately effectuating justice, but no, that's not what this is. Most of the crimes that are involved in the gambling treatment diversion court are pure financial crimes. So you're looking at theft, embezzlement, things of that nature. I've represented quite a few people who have made it into the gambling treatment diversion court as an attorney. One of the outlying cases was someone who was cheating at gambling in a very obvious and easy to get caught way. That was a story of somebody who had essentially taken their last $500 as they were being evicted from their home to try to get the money back. And then they got a good hand on blackjack. And so they snuck in an extra chip because they knew they had a winning hand. And of course, they got caught. So that was a case where I advocated for gambling diversion court.
So it's still the same setup. You still have a judge. You still have attorneys representing both sides, whether it's the state or or a gaming entity, and then the defendant. So you still have the same setup. It's just sort of a different set of parameters. Is that kind of the idea behind it?
I mean,
it's still in a courtroom? Is it even in a courtroom still?
Oh, it's all in a courtroom. And so it's kind of two phase, right? So the first phase is even, should this person go into the gambling treatment diversion court? And so that would be a hearing in and of itself. And the victims are participants in that as well. Sometimes the victims are casinos, of course. Sometimes they're small businesses who have been embezzled against. Sometimes they're big businesses that have been embezzled against. There's a lot of iterations of who winds up in that position. So you'd make the advocacy. You say, look, judge, there's absolutely a person in front of you who suffers from a serious problem gambling addiction. But for that addiction, they probably would not have committed this particular offense. And so instead of just being sentenced to prison or even probation, the judge puts everything on hold and says, okay, I believe that you are a good candidate for this gambling treatment diversion court. So I'm going to put everything on hold for up to 3 years. And you're going to go into this program. So now the program operates in many ways like the other diversion programs that I mentioned, whether it be drug court or mental health court, et cetera. And so they do an evaluation of you. They find out, exactly where the problem lies. You also, and this is unique to the gambling treatment diversion court, open up all your finances to the professionals who are involved in the diversion court. So you have, people with background, social workers and mental health professionals and attorneys, et cetera, and the judge themselves. And you're kind of looking at who this person is. You look at what their finances are. It is one of the conditions that you attempt to pay back as best you can. And you have to agree to try hard as you can to pay back the person that you stole from during the course of this diversion court. That's called restitution. And just as an aside, Sonja, you can't pay a lot of restitution if you're rotting in prison. But if you're in a program where you're getting healthier, where you're encouraged to work, to earn money, then you do have the ability to at least try to pay back as much of the restitution as possible. And then there's some restrictions that are placed on you as well. You're obviously not allowed to go into any gambling establishment. If you are seen in a casino, you have to explain yourself to the judge.
Wow.
If you linger too long in a gas station or a convenience store where there is gambling, through slot machines, you have to explain yourself. And they also monitor your financial history.
An ankle monitor bracelet type thing?
It's akin to that. It's a GPS variant. They have the ability to track where you go and how long you stay there.
Wow.
And then, additionally, if you were discovered to be opening up new sources of revenue, in other words, if you open up a credit card without telling them, and they're monitoring your credit history, they're monitoring your taxes, everything, then you have to explain yourself, and you can be kicked out of the court if you fail to comply with any of these requirements. And then oftentimes they will also do drug and alcohol testing as well. Because, we know that one addiction often comes with others as well.
So this is actually less of because when I heard gambling addiction diversion court, I almost envisioned like a separate building. You kind of like, like a door opens, you get to go into this one. But it's really more
That'd be very interesting, wouldn't it? It would be like the little side rooms over at the airport where they have the slot machines for smokers, but instead there's none of that.
Yeah.
No, it's actually your life in the gambling treatment diversion court is a courtroom. And you go back to that courtroom on a regular basis. There is a judge. Typically, that judge is wearing the robe and has the gavel and the whole thing. Yeah. And, they go over it case by case. All the people who are involved in the diversion court team are doing constant assessments of you, reporting back to the judge how well you're progressing or not. And I'll tell you, Sonja, the penalties for the types of crimes that we've seen that have been diverted to this court can have up to 20 years or more punishment waiting for people if they fail. And we've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are still real teeth kind of built into this process. But it sounds like it's just like a really comprehensive program to help people kind of get back on the right track. Roseman University's Neighborhood Health Series, or NHS, is a free monthly event with expert speakers on real conversations about health and well-being. It's free to attend, open to the public, and includes a complimentary meal. These are big picture conversations on global health, prevention, and collaboration across professions. So join the event March 26th in person at Roseman's Summerlin campus or virtually via Zoom. This month features founding dean Catherine Fogelberg and looks at Roseman's proposed College of Veterinary Medicine. As Roseman takes steps towards opening Nevada's first College of Veterinary Medicine, this is a chance to learn why veterinary care matters for all of us and not just our pets. Learn how veterinarians play a major role in healthcare teams, including supporting animal, human, and environmental health. So join Roseman in person at the Summerlin campus or virtually via Zoom. Register now at speakers.roseman.edu. Closing out the UNLV Performing Arts Center's 49th season is a performance by the New York Philharmonic String Quartet. The quartet debuted with John Adams' Absolute Jest in New York City in 2017, and it comprises the 4 principal musicians from the orchestra. All 4 of its members are prize-winning soloists and have performed around the world. Concertmaster Frank Huang, Principal Second Violin Chen Li, Principal Viola Cynthia Phelps, and Principal Cello Carter Bray. So with their powers combined, it's going to be an amazing performance. The evening's program includes Felix Mendelssohn's String Quartet No. 3 and Franz Schubert's String Quartet No. 15 and Kvardazats. That's Monday, March 30th at 7:30 p.m. at Artemis W. Ham Concert Hall. Get your tickets at pac.unlv.edu. Zen Leaf Las Vegas is a local dispensary brand with multiple locations serving the Vegas community. So if you go to their Flamingo and Fort Apache locations, here's something really cool. They offer deli-style flowers. So imagine a deli, right? Where customers can see, smell, and choose their buds before they are weighed fresh. And those locations at Flamingo and Fort Apache also have drive-through pickup if you want a quick and convenient option. North Las Vegas customers can take advantage of home delivery directly from the ZenLeaf team. And I would say ZenLeaf really focuses on making cannabis shopping approachable, convenient, and welcoming for both new and experienced customers. So visit a ZenLeaf Las Vegas location and, here's a special tip, mention CityCast or shop online using code CityCast, all caps, one word, to receive a special subscriber savings. So search for ZenLeaf Las Vegas to find your nearest location. I want to ask, because this was the first gambling diversion court to exist in the country, and it started in 2018. I know you said the law was passed in 2009, but the court itself was established in 2018.
Right.
What were the challenges that you and your partners faced in getting this court started?
It's the first formalized court of this nature in the country. There have been small pockets in other places in the country where the judges recognize the power of the gambling addiction and how it isn't really a good fit into the existing criminal justice structures around the country. So there were various efforts that were made, but this is the first legitimate statutorily based diversion court. And the struggle was that, a lot of people, even in our community, believe it or not, Sonja, in Las Vegas, people don't think that gambling addiction is real. They think that it's just a flaw of character, that it's just greed. In fact, there's one prosecutor who famously said in a battle that I had with him that my client isn't a problem gambler. My client is just a thief who likes to gamble. Just
to follow up on how people don't take problem gambling seriously as a mental health issue. I mean, there are a lot of connections between problem gambling and self-harm, right?
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, it is a problem for all of society. People who get caught up in gambling and who have this mental disorder based on it, it is real. Let's just say that right now. It could be devastating, not just to the individual, like you mentioned, self-harm, but to their families, to their employers, to our society. I mean, I think that the last estimate that it's in the billions of how much it costs the United States to just have problem gambling in our midst. And I can't imagine that Nevada doesn't bear the worst brunt of that just because of how ubiquitous it is here.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can tell us a story of someone whose life was changed by this diversion court, and that could kind of help illustrate both sort of the severity of the problem and what the court can really do.
I have one former client who has agreed to allow her story to be told. So I'm not breaching any attorney-client privilege. But this is someone who was in our community, a woman in her 50s, a grandma. And she worked for a small business, was a trusted and longtime employee as a bookkeeper of a small local business. And, you know, she had some life changes with family challenges and illness. And, you know, what started out for her as just being sort of a social break from some of the struggles in her own life with friends turned into a very solo effort, which, you know, basically resulted in the formation of this really horrific addiction where she was stealing money through the means of embezzlement as the bookkeeper from that local business. She devastated that local business when they ultimately found out what was going on. And understandably, they were quite angry and upset, and they felt, you know, the word that comes up a lot in these cases, because it usually is a trusted person or an intimate person who has access to the money, betrayed, you know. And we see this with small businesses, with big businesses. We see this with, you know, college trust funds that disappeared.
Oh, no.
You know, this sort of thing is very commonplace when people cannot stop gambling because of the addiction. And so with this particular individual, she got caught. She was immediately remorseful, you know, didn't challenge anything, confessed. And she went in front of the court.
How much money had she embezzled by that point?
That number is still kind of up in the air, but we could say it was significant, probably around $500,000 over a number of years.
And she lost it all.
Well, yeah, it was gone. I mean, you know, most gamblers don't have a little lockbox, but I will say that most people in this situation operate under the misguided and I would say broken executive functioning process that they'll ultimately win enough back to pay it all back.
Right.
Like, I don't think the intention ever is to permanently deprive the person of the money that they've stolen. It's such a sad scenario, and I could give you thousands of examples, but, you know, only dozens who have actually qualified and gotten through the Gambling Treatment Diversion Court. But with this individual, you know, she went to prison. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison for her theft. She reached out to me and another lawyer in town named Ross Goodman, son of the mayor's Goodman. We got back in court and said, hey, Judge, did you know about this particular law that no one seems to be paying attention to from 2009? And she said, no, I did not know about it. And his prior attorney did not bring it up. And so we went through a long process, like I said, went up and down from the Nevada Supreme Court, but we got her not only out of prison, but into a treatment program. This was kind of uniquely designed for her because we hadn't gotten to the brick and mortar yet. But ultimately, she became the first person admitted into that brick and mortar program. She went through 3 years. She paid back a significant amount, but obviously never enough to be full. I mean, that's a lot of money. And she ultimately got the benefit of the program, which is a dismissal of the felony charges against her. And she reincorporated back into the community in the role of being a paid problem gambling advocate. In fact, she even is part of that court program that she graduated from in helping assess, treat, and ultimately supervise those who are currently in the program. So, you know, real success story. I don't know if you would talk to the people who were victimized, that they agree. You know, and that's one of the challenges that a lot of people...
That's my question.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, so I'm glad you brought that up because I do feel like there's real harm that is caused, right, to families, coworkers, businesses. I mean, that business
that's the whole thing.
was devastated, right?
That's the core of why we are trying to do something different, is a way to heal the harms.
Well, here's my question, though. Are we not letting people face the consequences of their actions? And are we kind of giving them a free pass?
I mean, that's a great question. And I think it ultimately comes down to who we are as a society and what we care about. I mean, if we're only caring about punishing or hurting the people who hurt other people, this is a horrible program, right? Because it doesn't come with the sole punitive measure. Because you talk to anyone, you talk to anyone who's been victimized in any form, big or small, to them it's typically huge. And I always use this as sort of a really, really bad example. But, we don't have juries filled with the victims of crime for a reason, is that we like to think that our justice system is one of the best, if not the best in the world, and that is blind, and that we aren't looking at the emotions of it, but are trying to do what's best for the broader community. And I think that it's an easy argument to say it's better for our society to recognize mental health challenges when appropriate and try to, heal, rehabilitate, get those people on a good path, and as part of that, get that restitution going, than it is to warehouse people, even if it makes the victims feel better. It's a big question, Sonja, and I don't know that I have the particular answer. I just think that, we are a little quick to maybe the vengeance solution for a lot of people who have done harm in the world than anything a little bit more measured.
It almost sounds like, I'm putting words in your mouth now, but it sounds like
feel free.
You
know each other.
Yeah, you can also push back, but it sounds like you think that maybe an expansion of the diversion court would be great for our community, but also an expansion of diversion court, maybe philosophy, beliefs, sort of MO broadly to the justice system in general.
I do. It's no surprise that I think incarceration should be the last resort, and only when there's no other potential, like, accountability measure or appropriate punishment. Look, I deal with some of the most serious cases that exist, murder and sexual assault and other cases where I am called upon to defend people. Oftentimes, the proof is overwhelming that they have committed the offenses. And then my job is to convince the court that a more measured approach than the most maximum penalty is appropriate. There are always going to be people in the community, Sonja, who think that the maximum penalty is always appropriate. We see it all the time because, we look at the horrific outcome of a lot of offenses. A DUI where numerous people are killed, really, when someone says, oh my God, they only got 20 years on that.
Right.
That's a hard pill to swallow. And I get it, though. I understand why people think that that's a light sentence, but, it doesn't take into account just how harsh our prison system is. And maybe more importantly, on the other side, when people get released after 20 years of incarceration, of institutionalization, are we as society better when they get reincorporated in the form and shape that their minds have become? We don't pay real attention to what happens behind prison bars.
Yeah, and that punishment for them lasts on and on and on and through the decades.
And their families as well, and society as well. People, and I get it, but, family members are taken away. There's a lot to study and think about how our prison system works, and I feel like we as a society don't do that enough. But when it comes to problem gamblers in a community like Las Vegas, I'm really proud of my role amongst a lot of other people, too many people to name right now, who have gotten this gambling treatment diversion court, not just off the ground, but as a model for other places around the country. And I will tell you that other places are constantly coming here to see how we do it, especially as gambling spreads around the country in all its different forms.
You actually read my mind for the last question here, which is, we're seeing the spread of sports betting nationwide. I think we're about to see a wave of problem gambling follow suit, right? Yeah. So if we haven't already. So what lessons have we learned since our gambling diversion court started? And are we ready to export this model to other parts of the country?
We know that warehousing people for especially financial crimes related to serious gambling addiction is not the only answer out there. And I think what we're providing is proof that you can have these success stories. There are lots and lots of stories of people who've been able to reincorporate back into society without reoffending. And that's the thing, is like, the community pays for it one way or another, right? When you have people who are committing crimes based on an addiction, whatever that addiction may be. And gambling not only is no different, but maybe a little bit more insidious because now it is legal everywhere and encouraged and advertised. You don't see advertisements on TV for heroin, but you do for sports betting, And I would say that an addiction to either can be devastating and it has a societal cost. So I'm encouraged that other communities are looking at Las Vegas. We now have
Is our diversion court a success?
It is. I firmly believe it's a success.
By what metric?
It is much maligned by some because, I think that there's not enough information out there about it. And I'm glad that we have this opportunity to do that as well. The metric is, honestly, has some monies been paid back? Are these people still committing crimes? Are these people still addicted to gambling to the point where they're gambling? And I think that the measure of the success is after this very stringent, very strenuous 3-year program, where if they mess up one little bit, the consequences are dire. That they are able to get jobs, are they able to acclimate back into society without causing this strain and stress. And I think that the handful, honestly, in the last 7 years, compared to how many people probably should have gone through this program, have almost universally done well. I don't know of any major examples of people who have slipped back into gambling so bad that they're back doing what they were originally charged with doing. Will it happen? Invariably it will. But this program is doing the best that our community can to bolster against that. And I think to that degree and that degree alone, it is a success. Look, problem gambling is not fun. People who are in the throes of gambling with those addictions are not having a good time, no matter what. When they win, when they lose, it's all the same blank because their brains have literally been altered to not look at money as money anymore, to not be able to quit, to not be able to
get those
life in a
hits.
Secret. And the burden of that is just so overwhelming. And look, Sonja, you and I, we're Vegas people. There's no chance that someone who's lived in this community long enough isn't either themselves a problem gambler, or know someone who is a problem gambler, or know somebody whose family member is a problem gambler. But we don't ask. We don't talk about it. It's almost taboo, which is so interesting in a gambling town. But a program like this, it is modest. It doesn't really take that many people. But the people it does take, it's at least giving all of us a fighting chance for something called justice, but also something called rehabilitation and reform.
Well, Dayvid, this has been an enlightening conversation. Thank you so much for coming back on CityCast Las Vegas.
My pleasure.
And that's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed the show, go tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. Don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Las Vegas neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Take care.